guys, and welcome back to Love Tangle. This is going to be chapter 4, which is the last chapter before we move on to being completely on Timo's route. So I hope you guys are excited. Let's get started. Chapter 4. Several days have passed since Timo and I visited the dolphins and spotted Paul arguing with that stranger. Tonight, Paul and I are dining at Carlo's, the restaurant owned by one of our neighbors, Carlo Mazza.
After tonight, we'll have fulfilled one of our promises.
Paul happily smiles at me. That's right, we promised each other that we'd eat together at Carlo's restaurant in Toledo City. I smile faintly. Carlo's world famous, particularly for its grilled lobster, which we previously agreed that we would both order. However, there was more to that promise than simply gourmet dining. We had also sworn to become researchers. Thanks for asking me to dinner tonight, Paul.
You're welcome. I've been waiting for the chance ever since I moved to Toledo City. Of course, I never would have guessed we'd know the owner and head chef by the time we made it here.
No kidding. And not only that, but as a neighbor and a good friend, if someone had told us 3 years ago that this would happen, I suspect we would not have believed them.
That's for sure.
Paul appears amused by that.
You and I have made several promises to one another, starting when we were little kids, and we're slowly managing to fulfill them. That means quite a lot to me.
It means a lot to me too.
At this rate, I'm really looking forward to becoming your fiancé.
I don't know about that. I thought we agreed that you weren't going to bring that up.
You never said I couldn't continue to pursue you, though.
Boy, he never lets up.
Don't give me that look. Doesn't it seem natural that our relationship would head that direction?
I'm not ready to think about engagement and marriage yet. That's not why I came to Toledo.
I understand that. I respect your intentions. I also realize my promises with your father. Besides, I'm used to waiting.
You make it sound like all I ever do is make you wait. Whoops, I have a sudden flashback of the two of us as kids.
You remember, don't you? When we were kids, I constantly waited for you while your father took you traveling around the world.
Paul.
I remember struggling not to throw a fit when I had to kiss you goodbye.
Paul smiles suggestively. I can't stop myself from laughing when I see the earnest look in his eyes.
How could you laugh at that? You're horrible.
I'm horrible. You may not have thrown a fit when I left, but I remember hearing about how upset you were when I was gone. And have you forgotten the time I left my hand mirror at your house and you covered it with stickers while I was away?
That's right. So I recall you didn't talk to me for a whole week after that.
Nope. And if your mother hadn't explained to me just how lonely you were while I was away with my father, I might not even be here right now.
I still feel bad about that. I had no idea the mirror was a keepsake from your grandmother.
Paul takes my hand in his.
You have no idea how many times I've regretted doing that after I saw you cry.
I should hope so.
No matter how often you went away, I never got used to the loneliness while you were gone.
I catch my breath at the painful look in his eyes.
You're giving me that look again. Listen, I'm not trying to blame you. I just want you to realize I've wished to be with you ever since we were kids. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
Okay then, let's change the subject. And since we're on a date, work's strictly prohibited. Would you like to hear about your father?
Paul asks, gazing calmly into my eyes. Sure, that's right. You were working with him before you came to Toledo, weren't you? How's he doing? My father is considered an authority in animal ecology. As a veterinarian, Paul managed to connect with him at his previous job.
Yeah, he's doing great, and definitely still worthy of his hero status.
I can tell from Paul's enthusiasm that he honestly respects my father. I imagine that will never change.
My appreciation for his work hasn't lessened ever since the days where we used to gaze at his illustrations from his study.
I remember that. We'd hide under the comforter with a flashlight and spend all night with those books, wouldn't we?
That's right. They were so captivating. We just couldn't put them down. We had to hide so we wouldn't get scolded for staying up past our bedtime.
It seems to me we usually got caught anyways.
I remember your dad once bringing us a book and telling us, "This one's much more interesting. It'll broaden your knowledge."
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Afterwards, all three of us sat there flipping through several pages of books together. Paul and I spend quite a while reminiscing. Every so often, we glance at each other and smile, and it seems for a moment that we've traveled back in time. Following a thoroughly satisfying dinner at Carlo's, we decide to work off our meal with a walk along the harbor. It sure is quiet. All I hear is the sound of the waves.
You're right. The stars are really bright tonight, too.
I brush the hair from my eyes and glance up at the night sky. Wow, they look so beautiful. All that's missing now is a shooting star or two. Toledo is surrounded by nature once you get out of the city. I imagine it helps keep the air clean.
It's a wonderful place to live. I still can't believe my dream of moving here happened so quickly. And that you're here with me.
Me too. Suddenly, Paul stops walking and turns to face me.
It surprises me how beautiful you've become since we last met.
Don't say such a thing with such a straight face.
Why not? Because it makes you see me in a different light, perhaps?
This abrupt turn in our conversation leaves me speechless. Then, without warning, Paul steps in front of me, hiding me behind his back. Huh?
You're invading our privacy. Please, leave.
He calls out sharply. Peering into the darkness, I see a man step from the shadows. He's holding up a camera. Oh, that's Andre. Was he trying to sneak pictures of us? How long has he been here?
Oh, good evening, Dr. Morgan. What a surprise running into you here.
It's him! I realize when I hear his voice, I've seen this man once before. That's the man Timo and I saw talking to Paul the morning that we went to the Dolphin Center, isn't it? As I recall, his name was Andre Lee. Is he following Paul around? What could he be up to?
There's no need to be alarmed, Miss Kayla Michelle.
Huh? Why does he know my name?
You'd better not be photographing us without our permission. Let me see your camera. You don't really believe I'd hand over my trusty companion simply because you asked, do you?
Andre sneers back.
Well, I'll be going. Next time I'll have to hide more carefully.
Hold it. Paul appears ready to chase after Andre, but stops after turning to look at me. He then tightly wraps his arm around my shoulders.
I'm sorry, that must have been scary. Don't worry though, you're safe with me.
Thanks. It wasn't that scary. He gave up chasing Andre when he saw how worried I was, didn't he? The big question is, what's going on here that I don't know about?
That kind of killed the mood for our walk. I'll call us a car.
Okay. Paul immediately pulls out his phone and starts dialing. With his free hand, he continues gently rubbing my upper back. I find his warmth incredibly comforting. Several minutes after Paul hangs up, the same car I saw him riding in earlier arrives. The two of us climb in, and just as we're starting to relax, Paul's phone rings.
This is Morgan. Oh, hello, Josh. That's right, we're out at the moment.
It's Josh? I wonder what he wants. Paul's expression turns serious, causing me to become concerned.
Thank you, Josh. I will. Yes.
The conversation remains short, and when he hangs up again, I immediately ask him, "What happened? Paul, what happened? Is it something bad?"
There's nothing to worry about.
He smiles, and I can tell he's attempting to ease my mind.
There's apparently a bunch of reporters hanging around out in front of Lilac Court.
That's scary. Why are there so many reporters now?
Josh just called to warn us it might be better if we wait a bit before returning home.
Do you think they're friends of that guy Andre?
Who knows?
Paul, tell me what's going on. You're not in any kind of danger, are you?
I'm not exactly sure what's going on myself. He just seemed to like following around veterinarians, I guess.
Paul pauses to look at me and shrugs. He then puts his arm around me.
Shall we find something to do for a couple of hours?
Okay. There must be some reason those reporters are following him around. Is he really being honest when he says he doesn't know? I glance over at Paul. He's pulled out his phone and appears to be using it to search for something.
Maybe I can find a bar that's open late. No, although I wouldn't mind a few more drinks. Imagine you're tired after everything that's happened. Let's grab a hotel room. That way we can let our guard down and just relax. It'll also give us a chance to talk.
A hotel room? When he whispers that last suggestion in my ear, my heart begins to pound. Oh guys, this hotel room. Paul ends up taking us to the most renowned hotel in Toledo. I spend a moment gazing around our room in amazement. When you mentioned getting a room, I never imagined you'd pick this place.
Don't tell me you don't like it.
Just the opposite. It's fantastic, but I'm surprised you chose it out of the blue.
You're surprised?
Yes.
Is it a pleasant surprise?
Paul leans closer and smiles, and my cheek immediately begins to burn. Of course it's a pleasant surprise, although I'm not sure how appropriate that is right now.
You're right, this probably isn't the best time for pleasant surprises, but at least you can relax now, right?
He quietly rests his hand on my shoulder.
Well, I imagine those reporters will give up in a few hours. How shall we pass the time?
A mischievous smile arises on his lips and he gazes into my eyes.
Of course, I don't mind staying here all night.
How can you joke around at a time like this? He has to know something about what's going on, and I have to find out. Oh, there's already more new boys. We gotta get back to Timo. I guess Paul right now. I straighten my back and stare up at him. Paul, I need to know, why is all of this happening?
I'd like to know too.
Honestly, this response leads me to definitely reply that I feel there's something he's not telling me. I get the feeling there's something you're not telling me. His gaze abruptly falters just a little.
Like what? What gives you that idea?
I peer closely at him, searching for the truth.
Well, I'm happy for your concern, whether it's out of worry or suspicion.
He whispers while pulling me closer. Paul, I'm not suspicious of you, and I can't imagine why you'd be happy if I were. First off, why would you even think that? Is there some reason that I should be suspicious? Suddenly I realize Paul and I are standing barely inches apart.
See? You can't keep your mind off of me, can you?
Huh? He appears amused as he presses even closer to me, forcing me to sit on the bed when I try to back away.
I love you, Kayla, and I can bring you happiness like no other man in this world can.
He mutters affectionately while firmly holding my shoulders. He pushes me onto the bed, then leans over me. I grow tense as the sheets rustle underneath us. Come on, Paul, let me up. He's being way aggressive, guys. I start to squirm, however, I'm not strong enough to break free from his embrace. Oh my gosh, he's like raping us. Wait! My best friend has suddenly shown up, saying he wants to be my fiancé. I never imagined he would confront me with such a forceful display of his emotions.
Kayla, I want you.
He brushes away my hair and presses his lips to my neck. The passion in their touch sends a shiver through me. As his lips travel to my collarbone, all thoughts of escape quickly begin to vanish. No! Then, just as I close my eyes in anticipation, a cell phone rings, bringing me back to my senses. It feels as if I've just woken up from a dream. Paul, your phone's ringing. It could be Josh. You don't want him to worry, would you? I call it excitedly while pushing against Paul's shoulder. Yeah, get him off. He hesitates for a moment, then gets up and reaches for his phone. That was too much for me, guys. Timo thinks it was the best choice. I sit up again. Now that his warmth is gone, the air feels cool against my skin. My heart is about to burst. I breathe deeply, hoping to calm it while using my hands to straighten out my hair. I know I'm not ready to accept Paul, and yet I can't completely reject him either. Why is that? I would have happily gone along with his whispered affections just now. Paul turns to look at me while talking on the phone.
Timo? Paul, is Michelle with you? Yeah, she's here. Sorry for calling you. I don't have her phone number. Could you let me talk to her? All right.
Paul bluntly replies and hands the phone to me.
Michelle, I heard from Josh there was some trouble. Are you all right?
I'm fine. Don't tell me you were worried. The detached tone in Timo's voice is warmly reassuring, and before I know it, my heart seems to be beating calmly again.
I just wanted to make sure you won't end up missing any work.
He lets out a light sigh over the phone. Thanks, Timo.
Actually, I also have something to discuss with you. It's urgent and a bit complicated to explain over the phone. Is there any chance you could come to the lab right now?
In my desperation to escape the tension between Paul and myself, Timo's request immediately grabs my attention. Absolutely, I'll be there as soon as I can.
I'll be waiting.
He immediately hangs up the phone once he has his answer. It strikes me as an unusually vague request for Timo. Still, I don't hesitate. Forgive me, Paul. Paul, I have to go. Timo needs me at the lab.
Hold on a second, Kayla.
I'm sorry. I hand Paul his phone, then race from the hotel room. I couldn't resist Paul's advances, and yet I'm still not ready to accept him as my fiancé. I know it's not fair. I'm sorry. As I continue to run, I can't stop imagining how sad Paul must be right now. When I arrive at the lab, Timo grabs me by the arm and starts walking. We end up in the leopard area.
Dad is missing. On top of that, it looks like someone pried open the Clado leopard's cage.
Unwilling to waste any time, he starts explaining to me as we continue walking. You don't think someone stole Dada, do you? Oh no, someone broke in.
Maybe not, but we've definitely had an intruder.
The Clado leopards are in dire need of protection, making the lab's research data on them very precious. We immediately start by ascertaining that all the leopards are all still in their cages. Thank goodness, they're all here. I let out a sigh of relief. Timo also appears to relax a bit.
Sorry, Michelle.
What are you apologizing for? I'm just as responsible for the leopards as you are. You had every reason to call me.
Except, in the end, nothing happened to them. Sure, we had an intruder, but that's not a good enough reason for calling you here. I feel bad for interrupting you and your fiancé.
What, Timo? No. Paul's not my fiancé. The moment I hear him mentioned, I begin to blush. However, that doesn't stop me from correcting Timo.
He's not?
Without warning, Timo takes a step closer to me.
You were with him tonight when I called, right?
Well, yes, but that has nothing to do with him being my fiancé.
Then he's not going to get upset?
I look at Timo as he starts to loom over me.
If I were to do something like this?
Timo! He places his hand against the wall behind me, trapping me between his arms, then starts to lean towards me. My heart starts pounding loudly in my chest as the distance between us continues to shrink.
Michelle.
Slow down! With Timo's face now inches from mine, I close my eyes yet again, then I hear him whisper softly.
I'm joking.
Oh my gosh, you sly dog, Timo. That was terrible. What? That was a joke? Well, it wasn't very funny. I was about to have a heart attack.
You mean your heart was beating erratically?
Oh, Timo, I didn't know you had this side to you. I took one look at Timo's calm expression and immediately buried my face in my hands. What could possess him to do something like that?
I heard how entertaining it was to tease you and had to try it for myself.
Who in the world told you that? Disgusted, I begin to pout. Just then, I feel something bump against my leg. I glance down and discover a leopard has decided to join us.
Uh-oh, we'll have to finish this later.
Finish what later? Achoo! It's not you. Achoo! Achoo! Suddenly, Timo can't stop sneezing. He points his finger at the leopard who sits there staring back at us. What's going on? Oh my gosh, is he allergic to leopards? Timo loves all animals, not just the Kaleda leopards, and yet here he is, sneezing uncontrollably while attempting to fend off the encroaching creature. Timo, are you alright?
Yeah, it's nothing new. My medicine just must have stopped working.
Your medicine? Don't tell me you have allergies.
Yeah, I react to pretty much all animals.
All animals? Are you kidding me? Timo's explanation is so unexpected that I'm not immediately sure how to respond.
I can manage it with some medicine so it doesn't hinder my work.
He continues to sneeze as he talks.
Please, don't tell anyone.
Of course not. It'll be our secret.
Thanks.
Who'd imagine someone with such a deep love of animals could be allergic to them? How unfortunate, and yet he still wants to bring them happiness. That's why he chose this job, isn't it? Timo pulls something from his pocket that looks like medicine and pops it in his mouth.
Sorry, you all. You can stop worrying now. The medicine should start working pretty quickly.
He then addresses the gathered leopards, all the while maintaining a healthy distance from them. I can sense his concern for them over having their tranquility disturbed by the intruder. He's more concerned for them than he is for himself. I stand quietly beside Timo, watching the leopards.
Of all things, why would the intruder have tried to go after the leopards? That's way too bold for a poacher, and it's worrisome when combined with the possible data theft.
I'll say, I have an uneasy feeling about it. I wonder if it has to do with Andre.
Me too. An endangered species, they're targeted by some despicable people. However, breaking into our lab is going a bit far. Between that and the injured one, it's all just horrible.
Especially when you consider that these creatures are in dire need of human care. I became a researcher in order to support the survival of this species, and I'm gonna make sure that they stay protected. I don't think I've seen Timo's surprised face.
Let me guess, your long-term goal is to work at WAG, the World Animal Guardian Group's research center?
Yeah, that's right. What about you, Timo?
I'd like to, but that's quite an elite group of researchers. I doubt I could get hired there.
As I listen to his modesty, it feels like I'm catching Timo at an exceptionally unguarded moment. Then it sounds like you and I are pursuing the same dream. I continue to gaze at the leopards as I reply.
Indeed. However, in the meantime, it's important we protect these leopards.
His encouraging remark manages to strike a chord with me and the passion I have for my work.
Kayla, let's save these leopards.
Agreed. Did he just call me Kayla? We turn to look at one another, then both firmly nod. Timo and I finish dealing with the aftermath of the intruder, and by the time we make it back to Lilac Court, it's already morning. We find Carlo and Paul sitting on the sofa in the cafe, waiting for our return.
Welcome home, you two. Don't tell me you've been working all night. Kayla, I'm glad you're finally home.
Hi, Carlo. Paul, don't tell me you've been awake this whole time. I can't bring myself to look him in the eyes. When I lower my head, Paul stands up from the sofa to come and join me.
Well, I just got back from work. I was up all night prepping for the evening. When I walked in the door, I found Paul fidgeting about anxiously, waiting for you, Kayla. I wasn't fidgeting. It sure looks like it to me. Anyhow, we've been sitting here drinking coffee.
Paul steps in front of me and takes my hand.
We need to talk. I was worried after you raced off like that.
Paul, I don't have the courage to face him alone right now. When I hesitate, Timo abruptly steps in front of me, taking up the space between Paul and myself.
I'm sorry, Paul. Michelle's in dire need of sleep. Whatever it is you wish to talk about, can it wait? She's been awake all night. Show a little consideration. Why were you up all night?
Paul calmly smiles and makes a point of asking me rather than Timo. Because, should I mention the intruder? Carlo's here and it should probably be kept confidential. Timo also appears wary of Carlo's presence.
We wrapped up a few work-related details and talked a little about our dreams before we knew it was morning. Dreams? You called Kayla in the lab in the middle of the night to talk about dreams?
The tone of Paul's voice steadily grows stronger.
I called her there for work, nothing more, and now I think she needs to rest. Work, huh? And yet you just finished telling me about how you talked with her about dreams all night. If you were really being considerate, you would have brought her home sooner, don't you think?
The two of them angrily argue back and forth. Paul pauses to look at me and smiles.
So, tell me about these dreams. Did you throw in any promises you'd like to mention?
Oh, Paul. Skill check. Yes, we totally have enough. Cleared. Awesome. We even got a special mini story. Okay, bring it on. When I hear that, my heart skips a beat. Paul thinks Timo and I were talking about dreams of marriage or something similar, doesn't he? Paul, wait, you're mistaken. The dreams we were talking about are nothing like that.
Oh, then what kind of dreams were they? Now I really want to know. Why don't you explain them to me back in my room?
That smile's scaring me. The intensity of emotion I feel coming from Paul causes my heart to start racing. I left Paul standing there without giving him an answer. If he thinks I've been talking with another man, Timo, about our future, I can't blame him for being upset. Listen, Paul, it's not at all what you're thinking. Timo and I share the same goals as researchers, that's all.
I'm not convinced.
Maybe that's because he's not trying? Just as I start to wonder if Paul might be quarreling intentionally, Timo begins arguing back at him.
Doesn't matter what we discussed, she and I share the same dream.
Timo, don't bring that up!
Excuse me, Timo, but I wasn't asking you. You're talking about wanting to do the same job or having the same career goals, right?
Carlo grimaces and quickly interrupts. He realizes Timo is only adding to the confusion. I immediately take advantage of the opening he provides. Exactly!
What other dreams are there?
Timo stares at Paul with a puzzled look.
Look, we're getting off track. The important thing is that Michelle needs to sleep.
Out of consideration for me, Timo stubbornly holds his ground between Paul and myself.
Timo, I'm trying to hold a conversation with Kayla. I'd appreciate if you'd stay out of this.
I see Carlo shrug in exasperation as Timo and Paul glare at one another. I agree, Carlo. Sorry about all this.
It looks like you've got yourself a real three-way battle here. What are you gonna do, Kayla?
Me?
Seems you can either talk to Paul, who's been waiting all night, or take Timo up on his consideration and go to bed. I doubt any of them are leaving until you choose one.
In response to Carlo's suggestion, So that's the end of the chapter. Look forward to the next one. This is where you choose to be with Timo.
Hey Kayla, I'm happy to see this place getting quite lively. Would you call that lively? I'd say that's rather noisy. Oh, don't be so harsh, Nolan. I think my two new tenants are great people. I'm impressed by your boundless courtesy, Mr. C. I have a feeling that I'll have a lot to share with Morgan, though. You sure will. Kayla's father introduced me to Paul. I mean, that's not the only connection, but... Pardon, Mr. C? What did you say?
Oh, no, nothing, you know. The three of them are not only neighbors here, but also mates at work. How interesting.
That's right. They all work for the same institute.
Paul is stylish and affirmative, and Timo is sincere and a bit awkward. They'll make a good team.
I'm curious to find out who Kayla will choose to be her partner. I guess I'll sit back here and watch.
Who will you choose? Paul Morgan, the gifted veterinarian.
Will you accept me?
Or Timo Salminian, the enthusiastic researcher.
As emotions go, it's illogical and absurd, and yet I can't rid myself of it.
Oh, that is so much sweeter. We're totally going with a story with Timo. Bring it on! Okay guys, let's end it here for now, and we will pick up next time fully on Timo's route and beginning a brand new story with him. I hope you guys are excited, and I'll see you then. Bye! いつか話してく